Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sweeter After Difficulty podcast. I am Randy Highsmith, and I have a very special show today. This is actually going to be a little bit different of a format. I'm going to be by myself, which is the first time that's happened in the show's history, but that is because today we are celebrating the 1 year anniversary of the Sweeter After Difficulty podcast. So today is the 52nd episode. We have put out one a week every Friday for the last year, and we are super excited to come today and just talk about the show and what it's been and what I've gotten out of it. So I'm super glad you're here. If this is your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, set your notifications, share this out. This is going to be an awesome opportunity to jump in and join the family. For the rest of you that have been here along with us for the first year of this journey, welcome back. We are so grateful to have you. This is Sweeter After Difficulty. All right, so welcome. So what I wanted to do today was, first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about the show, what it is, what its inception was, where it came from. So in order to do that, I always love to shout out and give credit to people. And I want to shout out a couple of really special people to right off the bat to start this episode. So the first person, of course, is my wife, Michelle, who has been telling me for years, since she's known me really, that I should be doing something. I've been in bands, I've done all kinds of stuff like that. But we've talked about a lot of different avenues and a lot of different ways that we could really spread service and authenticity and all the values that we stand for out to a bigger audience and a broader sense. And the podcast idea came around. We'll talk about how that came to be. But she has been a stalwart supporter and a pusher in all things creativity for me. And so I want to start out by being grateful to her. And today's Mother's Day, so that doesn't hurt. So happy Mother's Day, babe. I also want to shout out a couple of other special people. The first one is a woman named Sherry Swift, and hopefully Sherry will be a guest on the show pretty soon. But Sherry is one of those people that when you first meet her, like when you walk up and you just kind of say hello, you can feel instantly that she's seeing right into your soul, right? She's seeing right through you. And I've had so many hours of amazing conversations, gotten to spend so much time with this amazing special lady. So I want to give her a shout out. She really has been someone who backed me and supported me and pushed me into doing something like this and telling my story through other people's stories, which has been a major theme. And again, something we'll talk about in just a minute here. The last person that I wanted to mention right off the bat, someone who really I just was instantly like friends with this guy, Ben Eilers. He lives actually in Havana, Spain, so we don't get a chance to connect too often. But every once in a while, one of us will send a text to the other one, just thinking about you. I got to spend like a solid weekend and then another weekend after that at some big real estate events with Ben, just spending lots of time. He's one of those people that really draws in and asks you a lot of questions, like draws you out. And then he is super attentive and he's super excited. He's the best audience to tell about anything you have going on in your life. So Ben, I love you. Thank you so much for this. When I first started the show, uh, well, let's go back. So, how I got into podcast and podcast production, I started working in 2018 at a little uh, virtual real estate brokerage called EXP Realty. They had about 11,000 agents, and I worked in a customer service department there. I'd always, like I said, I'd always been in bands and I'd always done tech stuff, and I was always the member of the family who was setting up new TVs and VCRs and stuff when we got them. But in terms of how the online technical aspect of it went, I didn't really know. I hadn't spent a lot of time doing it. And so I started this customer service job at EXP, and basically agents would come in and they would ask, where can I find certain things? And one of the recurring things that they asked for every day, time after time after time, was they all wanted to know where they could find recorded video content. And at the time, there just was nobody at the company who was putting that stuff together. It was relatively new. They were still building it up into this crazy, amazing brokerage that it's become today. But At the time, it wasn't there, and so I went to my boss and I said, "Hey, we've got all these agents asking for this every day. If I can figure out how to record these trainings and offer it to them, can are you cool with that? Can I spend some of my work time?" And she said, "Absolutely." And that's how it started. I ended up going to in-world training. If you aren't familiar with EXP's virtual platform, it's really cool. They have a whole, like virtual world in there. You can pop in and this is turning into a commercial for EXP, but I really love EXP Realty. I think it's a really great company. And I owe it so much because of the opportunities it gave me as kind of early on an early adopter in the company. So through that, I started recording trainings and getting more familiar with the tools and learning how to edit a little better. And then uh, we were about 60 days out from a shareholders event in Florida, and COVID broke out. And EXP decided rather than cancel the event entirely, right? Obviously, we had to cancel the in person event. They decided we were going to pivot and find a way to present that same whole thing, the whole shareholder summit in a virtual environment in the EXP world. And they were going to offer it for free to anybody that wanted to come. It was a really amazing thing. It was completely bold, and it didn't have the tools and things in place for it yet. It was still all relatively new. We were pivoting. I was lucky enough because of the production experience that I'd already had to be able to be on that sort of panel of really incredible people that figured out how to actually throw the first virtual summit in EXP world. It was a great success. There was, I think, over 15,000 people attended. It was ridiculously cool. And then because of that, I just ended up being that person. I knew how to set up everything. I knew where all the cords went. I knew where all the buttons did. So I ended up being the production guy at EXP for a long time. Uh, as that progressed and the leadership at EXP started doing their own podcasts and things like that, I got to get in and get my hands dirty and learn those platforms as well because they needed all that stuff to run. And again, no one there knew how to do it, and so we just figured it out. We got all those platforms set up, and I was able to practice them and learn how to do them for other people, and really get into the producing side of things. Helping leadership get the best out of their guests and we helped develop a weekly show called the Big Agent Meeting that I got to produce every week for a few years. Just really exciting, fun stuff, which brings me all the way to a year ago. I left EXP Realty, not on bad terms. Like I said, I love the company. I just needed to focus on other things. You can actually hear that story on one of the first episodes of the podcast because it was all so fresh. If you get a chance, go back and check out, some of those, maybe episode 2 or 3 even. I was talking about the choice I made in leaving EXP and why. But I couldn't get out of the production side of it. I just love doing it too much. And I missed being involved in it. I missed running the studios and all that. So I decided, I'm going to go ahead and do what everybody's been telling me to do. And I'm going to go ahead and start a podcast. When I decided to start it, I was trying to think of a name, and everybody wants a really cool name. I had some inspiration. I'm a big fan of like I've always listened to traditionally things like the Joe Rogan podcast, but I've also listened to like Kill Tony, some Louder with Crowder. I listen to all kinds of things, right? So people on all kinds of different political spectrums and different belief systems, things like that. I really am super interested in gaining perspective and learning to have uh, the most complete perspective that I can on the world and how it works. And so that idea sort of evolved into this. Well, if I'm going to tell my story, some of my story is really hard. It hits really hard. I went through some really hard stuff. And as a result of going through those things, I ended up having a better outlook on the other side. So I turned inward to my family and I started looking for ways that I could incorporate, family and legacy and things like that. And I discovered that my Scottish family, their last name is Ferguson, and they have a clan motto. And that motto it's in Latin, like they all are. And it says Dulcius ex asperus, which literally translates into English, sweeter after difficulty. It has a thistle, a Scottish thistle, and a bee floating right above the thistle. And actually, you can see, again, I've got it tattooed across the collar here, right? And there's a little bee on top of the thistle. I haven't got it colored in yet. I just haven't made time for it, but there's a little bee up here. And the bee is symbolic of toil. Right. The bee, his only purpose in most cases is to go out and collect pollen, come back and make honey so that the new bees have food to eat. Right. And so I loved the idea that something sweet came after, like the hardship itself wasn't the end of the story, right? The other side of suffering was where some really interesting and amazing things could happen. And so I thought that made sense. It was too easy. It tied into our family. Sweeter After Difficulty. That's the name of the podcast. When I decided to do it, I wasn't exactly sure what kind of format I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do interview because the important thing for me was being able to present authentic conversations, right? About any subject, about any sort of topic, anything that came up. I just wanted to be able to have real conversations and involve people in them, right? So I went out and I found a couple of my close friends, Jordan Lopez and Chris Anderson, and I picked them both for very specific reasons. Jordan is one of these guys who, no matter what happens, he's going to come up with a quote. He's going to, it's going to have something to do with suffering. He's always going to talk about jujitsu. It's like a prevalent theme in all of those shows. There's always a way to bring it back to jujitsu. Um, and then I picked Chris because I knew him a little bit less than I knew Jordan, but I knew enough about him to know that he wasn't likely to line up with me on our thinking, in a lot of ways. And I really didn't want the conversations on this show to be an echo chamber. I wanted it to be, a little pushback, right? A little opportunity to gain perspective. You're never going to gain perspective if the only people you talk to are people who think exactly the same way you think, right? So I started with Jordan and Chris. It also was a nice way to sort of dip my toes in, if I'm honest. It's a little bit daunting starting a podcast just by yourself talking for half an hour. There's definitely some imposter syndrome going, there's no way that most people are going to give a shit about what I have to say, right? Especially show after show after show. But I knew I wanted to be able to put out a consistent roster of content. And so I figured that I could start with episodes with Jordan and Chris. We would talk about a quote, break down a quote, get into our thinking and our philosophy behind it. Hopefully, crack it open a little wider and dig deep, which we did get to do on so many of these episodes. If you go listen to any of them from the first show going forward, all of these shows have been a really cool series of growth exercises where you can watch the evolution of each of us as it's plugged into the show and how that works. So I highly encourage you at some point, go back and check out some of the early shows. They're definitely worth listening to. They're super fun. The other thing I wanted to tap into is I've been lucky enough in my life to have met and become acquainted with, and in most cases, become friends with a ton of really interesting, fascinating people that have done some really crazy, cool things. And I thought, as excited as I always am to hear what they have to say, as excited as I always am to have conversations with them and to listen to their experiences and maybe glean what I can out of those lessons and take some of those experiences away. How cool would it be to introduce them to everyone else that comes to listen to the show, and show them how cool the people that I know are? So I started out making a list of people that I wanted to talk to. And this year I got to talk to some truly amazing people. Some people that really, not only were their stories inspiring and thought-provoking and perspective laden, um, they were given so generously and so freely. It was so important to me that this be a safe place where we could speak freely. And everyone that's been on the show has really taken advantage of that. It's been such a blessing to have the people I've had. I want to call out a few of them because, you know, I understand, I realize some people are going to be finding this show now. Some people aren't going to be finding this show for another 5 years, but I want to shout out those people who braved it, who came on and were willing to be part of the show before it was even a show. Most likely no one's going to see it, or at least you have to have that mindset, right? No one's going to see what I'm doing. No one's going to hear it. It's going to be forever till it builds, but the first one-on-one interview that I had was with a good friend of mine named Tyler Bray. Tyler Bray is a really awesome guy. He has such a crazy cool mindset. And what's interesting is I wanted to have Tyler on first because Tyler was born with spina bifida. So he basically can't use his legs from the waist down. I mean, he can kind of use them, but he can't walk on them without crutches. He's most of the time in a wheelchair. And I thought, I'm going to have this really cool interview with him where we talk about how hard it was to grow up with, this spina bifida and not being able to walk, and like how difficult and how much more difficult everything that he did must have been. And I was so pleasantly surprised, just to be candid and honest, because that wasn't his story at all. It was way more about a mom giving her kid the mindset that your limitations are just your limitations and mine are mine. It was such an important first episode for me to have a one-on-one with. Um, because I feel like every episode that we've done after that, every interview has benefited from just even that little tweak that Tyler gave me in that episode. Another really cool element of that episode is we actually filmed us rolling in jiu-jitsu. So rolling is what we call sparring in jiu-jitsu. We do um, it's not a mock fight by any means, but we tap and we let go. And so we did a roll and we filmed it. And during that episode, we actually commentated on it. Super cool, super fun. I think that was episode number 4. Go back and check that out if you have a chance. The next one I want to call out is I got a chance to talk to my buddy Justin Doyle. And the reason why this episode was cool, first of all, I had Justin on because Justin had been an Army Ranger during the wars in Iraq, the original wars back in the 90s. And he was one of the people that actually pulled Saddam Hussein out of the pit when they found him before his trial and all that stuff. And I was like, man, that is an unbelievable, crazy story. Just like what a crazy part of history to have been part of. And he said he would come talk about it. The amazing thing with Justin is, and what I got out of that episode more than anything else was I found there were times when he was telling stories where I kind of cringed up inside, like, ooh, maybe I'll have to edit that. Or I wonder how people are going to think when they hear that. And the really cool thing was I was able to push through and have an episode where we talked about the realities of PTSD. We talked about what life is like in the military. We talked about what it means to get shot in combat and what it means to come home and try to reassimilate and try to figure your way out and how you're treated and what you go through. It was a heart-wrenching interview, and I was so, so grateful to him for being brave enough and being candid enough to not worry if he was going to be offensive with his hard-earned opinions. And I didn't edit any of it out. I left it all in. It's a completely candid interview. I'm proud of it. I think it was an awesome conversation, and I got so much, again, these little mindset tweaks, right? This first year, I can't express enough how incredibly impacting it was on me. Another thing I got to do was, so I've always been inspired by the fact that Adam Sandler uses all his friends in every movie that he does. If you don't know, or if you haven't noticed, if you watch a couple of Adam Sandler movies, there's little different characters that are played by all the same friends that he's had forever. Um, and when I was coming on, I originally thought I was going to have things like segments. So like the Jordan and Chris thing was going to be a segment we were going to call Bourbon and Bushido, where it was way more focused on like having a glass of bourbon and talking about the way of the warrior and things like that. The another segment that I was going to do was going to just be com- vacation stories with my friend Alyssa. And Alyssa is I met her at EXP. I got to meet her in person at the live events. And she became one of those forever in my life people. She cannot enter our room without it instantly making me smile. When she talks, I crack up. She's from Wisconsin, and she has such just quirky affectations and sense of humor, and I love it so much. It brings me joy every time I get to talk to her. And the cool thing is, she typically takes one vacation, like one big vacation a year, and she goes and does a bunch of odd random stuff, and then I have her on and we talk about it. Those episodes, super fun, super funny. I laugh through them even when I listen back to them just to kind of audit the show and see where we've come. I just can't help but laugh. Alyssa Specht, another person I need to shout out. Super supportive, super fun. I love you, Alyssa. Thank you. She will be on again soon for part 3. She was just in Canada, so I can't wait to hear about that. Um, Another aspect of EXP that was really amazing was because I was running production for all of these things and getting to do production for the leadership at EXP. So like running recording sessions for Glenn Sanford or Leo Perea or Holly Mabry or Wendy Forsyth. I got to work really closely with a lot of their leadership and a lot of the agents because we would film and record content for them as well through EXP University. So I made some really amazing relationships with some absolutely outstanding people, and a couple of those I kept in touch with. It was like I can't lose touch with you. I don't know what I'm doing yet with production stuff, even with just starting the podcast and doing all that. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna get it together. And when I do, I'm gonna get in touch with you guys, and I'm gonna run my ideas by you. And you're people that I trust to go, that idea is horseshit, or that idea is great, or this is something, keep this, ditch that. These are really sharp, really successful, smart people. And so uh, what ended up happening was one of those people, Russ Lagan, was someone that I got to do the weekly big agent meeting with. He was the host of it, and he was part of the growth team. He's now part of EXP University. He's doing amazing things with training and stuff over there. And he's a speaker. He's a author. He does an incredible amount of things. We went through a lot of them in the episode where Russ came on. Again, huge shout out. So much gratitude for these people. Russ didn't have to come on my show. He came on it just because he's my friend. And we ended up having one of the most amazing, in-depth, really touching, candid interviews and conversations that we've ever gotten to have. It was one of those moments where the stars aligned. I was super, super excited and grateful to be in that conversation. And because of that relationship, he hooked me up with a friend of his named Brett Moore. And with Brett, it was like finding a brother. We were like, oh my gosh, do you love this? Do you love that? And we ended up talking. And then before our third conversation, we decided that what we were going to do was start a podcast company, recording and editing and posting and making clips and white glove servicing all of the people that we knew could use help with podcasts, but probably didn't know how to do it or didn't have the time to do it. Like Russ is an incredibly busy guy. He's got 10 million things going on. So we came to him and said, hey, we've got this podcast service, Apex Podcast, and we want to work together with you while we get our sort of the ground beneath our feet and figure out what we're doing as a business. And Russ was like, of course, I'm 100% on board. Again, I cannot say enough amazing things about Russ. What an amazing guy. I love you, Russ. You're such a great dude. Thank you so much. Another one of those guys is Austin Chevron. And if you don't know Austin also was gracious enough to come on the show. He had actually just launched a book called The Money Puzzle, which is right here, The Money Puzzle. And Austin is a ridiculously successful guy, crazy business dude, super interesting, and very just like has a system, and he's a speaker and he's a coach and he's an author and he's a father and he's a husband and he's a sports guy and he's a video game guy. Like we just have all these crazy things. I was one of the first people that Austin met when he came to EXP, and he sat at the booth with me for like all day long, and we just became friends, just talking about what he does and what I did. And and figuring it all out. Austin Chevron, he has a podcast out that Apex is producing called the Winning Twice podcast. It's everywhere that Apex releases podcasts. So it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, it's on all of the Apple podcasts. It's everywhere that you find them, just like Sweeter After Difficulty and the Russ Lagan podcast. So make sure you go check out all of those super cool podcasts. So aside from podcast stuff, about 8 years ago, um, I was in the worst physical shape of my life. I had been in a crippling car accident when I was 19 that put me in bed for over a year. I was at least 80 pounds overweight, maybe more, um, than I should have been. I had literally, I couldn't walk, but all the muscles in my left leg had atrophied, and I was using my right leg as a club. I was unhealthy. I had cardio issues. I had flexibility issues, and I really felt like this is going to just be a slow descent into the maelstrom, and eventually I'm just going to end up dying miserable, breathing into tubes in a bed somewhere. And I was so horrified and terrified by that prospect that I reached out to a friend and I said, I need to do something for me. I've been reading about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What do you think? And he said, here's a place to go. And I went and plugged in. I was instantly one of those people that was addicted to it. Uh, for the first 6 months to a year, I would literally just limp to my truck after practice. I would get out of my truck, limp to bed, just gingerly get in bed and lay there until it was time to get back up, wake up like the dead. Just absolutely broke me. And then it did the most beautiful and unexpected thing that I could ever have imagined. It rebuilt me. It changed me physically. It changed me emotionally. It changed me mentally. It changed my confidence. It changed my awareness. I I cannot say enough amazing things about what jiu-jitsu has done for me on this journey, but I guarantee that I wouldn't be doing anything that I love as much as I'm doing now if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu. I would be a completely different person. I can't imagine the person that I would be. It was terrible. And so I'm super grateful to all those jujitsu people. And so what I try to do is I try to bring them in too. I try to get jujitsu people to come in because again, I know that every one of them, just like every one of us, just like every one of you, we all have a story, right? We all found ourselves at some point making a decision to try to get better. That's the heart of Sweeter After Difficulty. How can we be better after getting knocked down so hard? And maybe you've been beat down. Maybe you thought you were going to die. And maybe in some ways you did die. But if you're hearing this, you made it. You survived. And if you can learn to find joy, to find contentment, to find peace, even just in not being in those circumstances anymore, if that's all you can get, the tiniest pinprick of light in the darkest room, if you can get that, your life will truly be sweeter on the other side of difficulty. So I brought in some of my jujitsu friends. Some of the episodes I've had Dave Kimmelman, who's a really sweet, amazing guy. He came up in jujitsu in the early 90s when it was all the crazy stories that you've heard about jujitsu and, and dojo storming and your coach calling you out and all those things. Having to have a damn near a secret handshake to get to the private location where they were practicing. Dave was part of all that. And he is such a generous and sweet and kind, and gentle person for having come. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he is who he is, but I'm so grateful to him. Ian Johnson came on the show. Uh, Such an amazing heart. What a crazy cool dude. Um, Also crazy. he uh, he puts himself into some crazy situations. Um, some people get that thrill of exhilaration. I've never been one of those people. I've always been sort of like a cautious observer, you know. Um, but it's great having friends like Ian because he's also really good at going, "Hey, don't diminish yourself. Don't talk down to yourself. Don't give yourself limiting beliefs. Stop arguing with yourself. Stop complaining." Right? All these things that seem like, yeah, right? Like, of course we believe that, but then how much do you do them? Right? And Ian is a constant reminder of those things. Super awesome guy. He will definitely be back on the show. Love you, Ian. Thank you. And then, of course, I had my friend Linda. Linda is a really amazing friend of mine, a fellow brown belt. We both are going to be moving up together into our black belts pretty soon. We both just got the nod. I'm so excited to share that promotion ceremony with her to get to just to get to have that experience together. When she came on the show, um, we were talking about a quote that says, "The hole is where the light gets in." And she had some really just beautiful things to say about the idea of light and about spreading light and sharing that. And she's someone who always has a smile for me. She always has what's the latest conspiracy theory, kind of thing. In fact, when we did the episode, she came in wearing a tinfoil hat. I mean, just the best. Linda, I love you. Thank you so much. The only thing I don't like about Linda is that she loves to bet on sporting events. Mainly, we bet on UFC. I really am bitter that I didn't bet on Sean Strickland because I backed him in the last fight, but I was so gun shy because I backed Max Holloway, and then Charles Oliveira ended up just taking him to the ground and out boxing with him. So I ended up having to run 3 miles to pay Linda off on a bet. Uh, so I was too gun shy and I wanted to bet on Strickland, but I didn't. Anyway, I'll just have to know that I took that victory. But again, Linda, I love you. Thank you. Uh, Aside from conversations that I knew were going to be easy, right? Because I can always have jujitsu people on, and we can have a conversation. It's easy. We have a common thing that we can all talk about, right? But one of the cool things that came from doing Apex was I started to get to plug into my partner Brett's network. So he knows all kinds of crazy, interesting people too. And as a result, he started plugging people into the show. So I got to bring Todd Hoffman from Gold Rush on the Discovery Channel onto the show. That was kind of a crazy interview. It was sort of a back and forth, like we were both asking questions and both answering questions. And again, Todd was one of those guys who I don't agree with every opinion he has, but it was really crazy cool that he got to come on and just say what he wanted to say, and we could have an authentic conversation. And then you, as you listen to it, you get to decide how you feel about it. I think that is so fair and so cool. And so I was super grateful for Todd being willing to come on the show. I also got to talk to just an extraordinary young lady, Alex Newberry. And she had really a cautionary tale. I don't even know if cautionary tale is the right thing. She had a series of unfortunate events that really hit her hard and fast, bam, 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 right in a row. And she found herself being sex trafficked. Such a, it was a really hard story for me to listen to, a really hard conversation to have, just frankly. Because I have a protective spirit, right? I want to go out there and I want to protect people like Alex. And I know that I can't. And I know that it happens to people every single day. And my conversation with her was not only a testament to her bravery, but it was also an opportunity for me to sort of realize that I could only do what I can do, And so I need to focus on doing as much as I can with what I can do. Such an amazing and impacting lesson. Super grateful to you, Alex, for that. Through Alex and Brett, I met an awesome dude named Bob Marlette, who actually helped start the band Quiet Riot. He was a famous producer in Hollywood. He produced a bunch of bands. He Black Sabbath, and he produced Shinedown, and just like a bunch of bands. If you've heard of them, he's probably had a hand in it producing them, or knew the people that produced them. Really cool story, candid stories from the road. Stories about leadership and about what it means to produce, which was great for me because I always think of myself more of a music producer that produces conversations. And so Bob got to plug into that, and we got to do um, some really fun back and forth with his experiences on the road. Um, all of these conversations did exactly what I hoped they would do. And someone asked me the other day, like, how's the show growing? Like, how's listenership? What are the numbers like? I'm like, well, I mean, I've got a consistent viewership. The same people, it's not a ton of people, but the same people listen every episode. Right. So to me, I get so much out of doing these conversations that I would do them whether anyone was listening or not. And in fact, when I started the show, I had no idea if people would listen to it or not. Your friends will all listen to one episode, right? But if it's not good, then they don't keep listening. And so I didn't know. I didn't know if the show was going to be any good or if people were going to want to listen to it. But it turns out we do. And so, like I do with every episode of the show, I want to end with a little gratitude. We're going to continue to go strong. Sweeter After Difficulty is going to continue to focus on getting great guests in that have amazing stories to tell. I mean, I've got some really crazy stories from people coming of, just the most horrific circumstances you can imagine, the worst circumstances you could find yourself in, the bottom of the barrel, and then finding themselves on the other side of that. Uh, I knew that it was real for me, but getting to talk to so many people that it's also real for has been so enriching, and it's really created and fostered a sense of community in around the show. When people come up to me and they go, "Oh, hey, I heard you talk about this on the show the other day," or, "Oh, I really like that," or, "This guest was awesome." It fills my cup so much that I can't even like, I literally just get, like, teary, you know? I'm so, so grateful. So, as always, I just wanna express gratitude. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this show. Again, I love that you're here. I love you, and I hope that you'll stick around. I hope that you'll bring your friends. I hope that you'll have conversations. I always love when people write down in the comments the things that they feel or their perspective on things, because again, I want as much perspective as I can get from as many people as I can get as often as I can get it. So, for everyone that's been on the show, for everyone that will be coming on the show in the next year, and for you, the listener that's here, whether it's your first time or whether you've been with us for all 52 episodes, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. And I'll see you in the next episode of Sweeter After Difficulty.